We've been in the industry around 10 years, and we've just completed the Global Biorisk Advisory Council's latest training on SARS and COVID-19 response. And we're offered you to talk today for the Chamber because there's a lot of questions that we've been getting out there from some of our customers and obviously new customers on actually what they need to do, and there's some confusion in regards to returning to work. Now, I also like to thank Tiffany from the Chamber for hosting us. And and we'll answer all your questions that you might have at the end of the small presentation we've got. So we've got a bit to get through, but feel free to jot any questions down and we'll go forward. So we can go to slide 2 if you like.
Should be on now.
Oh, I don't see anything.
Can anyone see slide 2? No? Okay. Give me a moment.
Well, I say don't work with kids, animals, or presentations.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just undo that one.
Yep, I got it up.
Okay, hang on, bear with me. All right. There we go.
Slide 2.
Yep.
So the big question we'll answer today is, I suppose for most businesses, is what your obligations are, and also how you can reassure your staff and your customers when everyone's starting to return to work. So some organisations already started coming back and some haven't. And biological safety is an important, and not just for compliance. It's going to be a key consideration to think of as a point of difference to your customers going forward when they decide which organisation they want to do business with, and also will play a role in helping to attract and keep staff if you're looking to hire staff with this new, I suppose, moving forward coming out of the shutdown. That said, there's compliance we have to deal with now. And even our friendly, in our local region, WorkSafe inspector has already been called to workplaces in regards to having complaints from members or the workers about their bosses are not doing enough for them to feel safe at their workplace. So today we'll be providing some answers and questions to some key questions that people ask. Now, I will put in a disclaimer for starters before we move forward. This is just a general guide. What we're doing today is not designed as a comprehensive answer to specific industries. So bear in that mind, it's not going to be for people who are looking for heavier compliance, like as in, say, for medical or health departments or, say, commercial kitchens. They'll have some additional compliance they'll have to deal with, which we can do, but this is just a general overview to give you, I suppose, a good foundation of where to move forward. Now, here are some of the questions that we're going to be going through today. So we've got 8 points to go through, and we'll start with the first one. What is my obligations? If you want to go to screen 4. So under the Work Health Safety Guidelines, obligations, they actually have expanded to include COVID safe part to return to work. Now, under the laws, you are required to take, and I'm reading this out here directly from the Work Health Safety laws, you are required to care for the health, safety and welfare of your workers, including yourself and other staff, contractors and volunteers, and other clients, customers and visitors at your workplace. So you have to do it for everyone who comes to your place, regardless if they work with you or not. And this is part of the guidelines. So having the process of having the workplace thoroughly cleaned, and this is an area that we are passionate about, because having everyone want to increase the hygiene levels has identified for some big companies, and a lot of companies that we've been dealing with, who don't actually have a dedicated cleaning process or plan or procedure. Some don't even have cleaning scopes. They leave it to the cleaner to come in and just do what's told to do. In this day and age, it's not really good enough, because you're responsible for that workplace. So you need to know what's being cleaned, how it's being cleaned, and how often it's being cleaned. Also, which we'll go into more later, also setting up the workplace for social distancing, educating staff, because now that we're going to have increased cleaning obligations, is that depending on how often your cleaners are coming, will depend on whether you have to do some cleaning in between the intervals of the cleaners, yourselves and your staff, which we'll go through as well. Also, it's a mandatory now that you've got to provide hygiene supplies, soaps, sanitiser, paper towels. A lot of businesses don't have these set up, or they might have a bar of soap sitting in the corner. This is not good enough anymore. We've got to look at dispensers and different units to be able to do that, so avoiding that all those touch points. And then encouraging policies for people to stay home if they're sick, because we're still not over this COVID-19 problem. It's still there. And look, having the protests, we could have another reoccurrence, who knows? So we've got to take heed of what we do ourselves and make sure that we are compliant for our own little workplace. If we all put in together, we'll get over it. Next slide, please. So what is a cleaning plan? This is your who, what, where, and how. What equipment is being used, how often it's being cleaned, what products are being used. And this is an area that we find is very lacking in most businesses out there. Don't assume that your professional cleaners, if you use them, do it perfectly, because they're coming from old policies or old ways of doing things before the COVID outbreak. And to be honest, the COVID outbreak was being pretty relaxed. And you hear about the schools talking about, or the government talking about increasing cleaning at the schools. The schools were under cleaned in the first place. And most people who have kids realise when they go to the schools that these are not a very clean place. So they've had to increase the cleaning to what it should be. Also, have you got clear documented procedures for your contract cleaners? Do you know what they're cleaning? Having a plan saying, oh, clean office, the CEO's office, what does that mean? What are they cleaning in that office? Are they cleaning keyboards, touch points, or are they just mopping the floor? Mopping the floor still means you clean that office. So you need to start stipulating to make sure that you want the crucial areas to be covered in the cleaning, and have these documented and have these contract cleaners sign off on it. So this is where we start talking about preparing standard operating procedures for the cleaners to get this going and reassuring staff that things are getting done properly. And other things with contract cleaners is their equipment. Is equipment being kept on site? If not, are the cleaners bringing their own equipment, which is common? So there's a big glaring point in regard to that, is that if the cleaner's coming on site, where have they been before your premises? And where's that mop been before your premises? Now that the pubs are opened up, has it just come from the pub's toilets to your place and they're mopping your kitchen floor? So these are things you've got to ask for. I advise people now to start stocking their own equipment so you know what's been done, and giving cleaners time to actually clean their own mop, your mop heads, or disinfect the mop heads before leaving. These are things to help mitigate risk and obviously stop the virus in its tracks. Like washing your hands regularly. We've got to wash our equipment. And unless you have full-time cleaners, you're going to have to ask staff to clean in between the visits from your professional cleaners, and prepare an updated documentation for your own staff to get the cleaning done, and work out what they need, what their responsibilities to you to help maintain a safe, hygienic place to tackle this coronavirus outbreak, and have this well communicated with the staff. And it's just work together, as we say, we're all in this together to help maintain a clean and healthy environment. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest questions a lot of people ask is cleaning versus sanitising and versus disinfectant. And these words get thrown around a lot. To be honest, most punters between cleaning and disinfecting and sanitising, a lot of people get confused with this area, and these words are banded around. In a nutshell, cleaning is a process of removing dirt, visible contaminants, food waste, dirt, grease from the surface. And we're talking sometimes microscopic stuff that's very small oil droplets. You know, you might have a bit of butter drops on the kitchen bench, things like this. These things need to be removed first before you can sanitize or disinfect a surface. And the cleaning process is designed to clean the surface, but it's not designed to kill microorganisms. Sanitize and disinfectants is, as it says, get rid of microorganisms, but they get rid of them in a different way. The main difference between sanitizers and disinfectants is that sanitizers reduce the number of microorganisms on a surface to a safe level, whereas disinfectants are designed to kill on the spot. However, disinfectants to be worked effectively need dwell time, which is another area that people don't fully understand, is that sanitizer technically leaves a coating on a surface, so it limits things to grow, but they're softer in regard to food.
Sorry, Darren, we're just having a bit of trouble with your audio at the moment.
So if you happen to have it on your fingers, you ingest it, or when you're around children.
Darren, sorry, can I just stop you there for a moment?
Yep.
We just lost your audio for a little bit there, so sorry.
Want me to go back?
About 30 seconds, yeah.
Sanitize and disinfectants, they get rid of organisms in different ways. Sanitizer reduces the number of organisms on a surface to a safe level, whereas disinfectants kill. However, disinfectants do need a dwell time to kill effectively. So a lot of people make a mistake is they get on a kitchen bench, use a disinfectant, think they're doing the right thing, spray it, wipe it, which means it hasn't done its job at all. It needs time to kill. So what we call a dwell time or a contact wet time. So generally most disinfectants used in a toilet, people will spray the toilet bowl, walk away, has a dwell time. Sanitizer is a softer product. It still kills organisms, but generally these things are more food-based. So if you happen to ingest it, it's not going to be detrimental to your health, but also it's all more ideally suited for childcare centres because it is softer to the body. We've got to remember that a disinfectant is a poison. It's a pesticide. You're killing something. So people using Glen 20 and spraying their cars inside, I've had people talk to them, they're getting headaches because you're technically spraying a mist of poison in your car while you're still breathing it. Just, it's common sense. If they look at the back of the packaging, it'd be saying not to do that. So we'll move on to the next slide. So which areas should we focus on to help prevent the infection? Now, there's a lot of areas that are common touch areas, like door handles, printer buttons, remote controls, meeting tables, FPOS machines. These are things that we need to outline with your contract cleaners that you want to make sure that are ticked off and being addressed. But also in between what we talked about with cleaners is having your own staff regularly doing these areas as well. Now, sanitizer will stay on a surface for, depending on the sanitizer, for days and keeps working time and time again. But you still got to help clean the area. But also on top of that, the 3 top reservoirs for microorganisms, which will be surprising, is obviously touch points, which we talked about. Also, lesson areas that people don't think about for your workplace is company vehicles. This is a workplace, and particularly in company vehicles like trucks, if you've got multiple staff using a particular vehicle, these things need to be cleaned and sanitized as well. And so if you have someone sneezes in a vehicle and then jumps out into the shift and shuts the door and goes home, next guy comes next day, the place could be contaminated. And that's why you've got to nip it early. So having a sanitizing or disinfecting regime at the end of the shift or even halfway through the shift can help avoid this. But we're also looking at touch points, door handles, petrol caps. You know, we've done a lot of work with Citywide, Cleanaway in regards to setting procedures in regards to this to help them stop an outbreak in their workplace. Also, another one which people don't realise, floors. Floors is a big area where it can transfer the virus or microorganism around your workplace. Because you'd be surprised how many times pens, paper clips, things get dropped on the floor. If the floor's not clean, you'll spread that contaminant throughout the place, and you can actually pick it up from the floor. And people are walking in and out all the time. So, and obviously I'll put there, notice how long the COVID has been lasting on surfaces. With plastic, it can be up to 7 days. So that's when we talk about crockery, having people, little things, simple things you can do, have people have their own crockery and look after their own crockery. So their own coffee cup, they have the one coffee cup, they wash it, they clean it, or put it in a dishwasher, but stick with their one cup throughout the day. Just little things, it's not hard, just to change a way to doing to help manage this area till we get over the whole crisis. Now, these sort of things, we can help if you need to, writing out standard operating procedures if you need to. But we're going to go on to what happens if someone tests positive in your organisation. This is a big fear that we've had asked. So hopefully this won't happen to you, but you'll have to, for a start, everyone who's in business should have a policy and procedure for all their workers to do and understand what they need to do and activate it if something like this does happen. No point trying to shut the gate after the horse is bolted. Get on top of it now. Doesn't have to be extensive, but at least you've got a framework to travel to for your workers, and go through your workers with this in case it does happen at your work. So have it prior to having an outbreak. But the main place is you'll need to isolate the area, cordon off so it can be effectively decontaminated in cleaning, which is a high extensive cleaning. The cleaning we're talking about at the moment is just prevention. Decontamination cleaning is obviously more thorough, which is not needed for the everyday workplace on an ongoing basis. But also things, if you're going to attempt the cleaning yourself in-house, which you can do, there's no law saying you have to use contract cleaners, but make sure that you have documented use of proper PPE to be able to do that. Have this all documented. The people who are going to clean from your workplace are well trained or have training, and document what you've done as part of your decontamination clean that you're doing. It's a must to have these things documented, so for your staff to do, or you use outside contractors. Also, with the affected people, they've got to be self-isolated, like get tested and get cleared. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of pain, so it's best to have prevention and not have the issue where you have to decontaminate clean, because it will affect turnover, because you'll have a place shut down to a certain time. And you think about trucks, say garbage trucks, it's a massive big problem because they're on contracts. Next slide, please. What products should I use? Well, there's some really you can keep it simple, and you don't have to overcomplicate it. It does get overcomplicated by a lot of people, but and all this documentation comes from the health organisations, the government, is you've got to clean a surface first properly. Because if you don't clean up anything like an oil droplet, food particles, the virus, being a microbe, will attach themselves to these areas, and just spraying a disinfectant on the surface might not get to these organisms because they're protected in a layer of oil or food. So just spraying with a disinfectant or sanitiser is not technically proper way of doing it, and won't probably haven't be an effective way of reducing contamination from COVID-19 or reducing the infection control. So we're looking at basic cleaners, and this can be dishwashing liquids, a good detergent, spray and wipe. All these things are common things. Sanitisers, we normally use the food-based sanitisers in around the kitchens, cutting boards, and these are common items. Disinfectants, as we say, needs dwell time. These are more recommended for bathrooms and those sort of areas where you want instant killing. And look, common products are bleach. Bleach will kill you. You've got other different disinfectants. Most of them will work on coronaviruses. So, and most of the information I've pulled from here is actually from what's been tested on SARS, which is a similar coronavirus to COVID-19, because a lot of testing yet hasn't been done on the COVID-19, but it's a very, very similar type of virus. Next slide, please. Another one we get asked a lot. Should I be using a hospital-grade disinfectant for your normal cleaning in workplace? In effect, no need. Now, and for the general punter, using a hospital grade disinfectant or cleaning agent will probably be too strong for the gentle punter or place to use, because then you need, they're a lot stronger and you'll need more PPE to be able to handle it. And the everyday cleaning agents that we have for the workplace, because we're doing prevention, not decontamination, is ample and fine. You're not a hospital or a medical place, so there's no need to use hospital grade. And unless you are, and if also unless your governing body for your industry is recommended or asked for this, you probably need to get clarification. And most products, even though they're not hospital grade, will have the underlying ingredient that's in the hospital grade in the same, they're using the same chemical. It's just it hasn't been tested for hospitals to be used in hospitals to be approved. Next slide. Now, do I have to do a
We're just losing your audio again, Darren.
Or fog? Now, all this stuff. The internet connection is unstable. Hear me now?
Yep, you're back now.
Do I have to have a mist or a fog? Now, this has been on TV, I've been on radios. You see a lot of people spraying around. In effect, you don't need it. If your place has been shut up for 2 weeks, this virus can't live outside the body more than 7 days. But general cleaning for your place, unless you had an outbreak, just general cleaning will suffice. You do not have to do a fist or a mop. If you want to, we can do it. It covers all wide range of areas. The only difference between what a mist and fog really is you're using a device to break down the droplets to a finer particle or droplet to be more suspended in the air to cover more surface. Instead of using a trigger spray where the droplets are quite heavy, fall to the surface quickly, the devices break up the droplets into a finer mist. It's still moisture on the wall. It covers areas more quickly, but there's no real need for it if you don't feel you need it for yourself. I think that's the last slide. In closing, COVID-19 has thrust cleaning and health into the spotlight. And every flu season runs from April to September. The workplace is a hotspot for flu. And you'll find we have been contacted by many organisations. We even had one from Peninsula Health. Is that the interesting outcome from this COVID-19 situation is that it has identified that a lot of industries and workplaces have increased their hygiene, which is great. Is that other viruses are not being prevalent at this time of year. Gastro, when last time I was speaking to them a few weeks ago, they haven't seen it for months. So everyone's is obviously come to the party in increasing their awareness with hygiene, which is good. And it's actually, you'll find, even though people might say, oh, it's going to be an expense to increase some of these cleaning practices, the upshot is you're going to have less time with people having not been sick because they're not getting sick from other viruses. So it's robbing from Peter to pay Paul in a sense. There's not going to be really any extra cost to your business. I hope this has been helpful. I'm sort of at the end of the presentation. And yeah, any questions or any particular things you need to clarify on?
Feel free to unmute yourselves and either you can put something in the chat box or you can ask directly Darren. I will supply Darren's information to you all just in case you do want to get in touch with him after the presentation as well. Any questions from anyone?
Also, it's something I have to remind you about, I've been told by my assistant, is that safe workers, you need to get posters and information in regards to putting on the walls for people, like washing your hands, which you're seeing it everywhere. And so you can get these posters freely from a lot of the safe work websites. We can supply them as well. So safety operating procedures is a must for some of these areas, just to make sure everything's ticked off and covered.
Okay, Mike has made a good point. He said, thanks for your presentation, Darren. Common sense as usual. So yeah, it really is.
It is. Yes. So a good example is that another thing as simple as hand sanitizers, and Mike would know this because I've talked to Mike before, is Now I'm getting people going, I need a touch-free hand sanitizer. And I go, okay, that's fine. But what's wrong with it? The lever ones are still fine.
Oh, we're losing you again.
The lever might be contaminated. I was going to say, yes, even if it's not touch-free, it's still okay because you're squeezing or pressing a button that's squeezing a hand sanitizer into your hands. That's going to kill the virus anyway. So it's nice to have, but they're hard to come by at the moment because everyone's I suppose it's a supply issue with that. But you go to Bunnings and people still press a small pump, and no one seems to complain about that. So it's any hand sanitizer is good, as long as it's over 60% is the main focal to it. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
No, I think we're all covered.
Okay.
All right, so once again, thank you for your time. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Tiffany. I just want to say g'day, Darren. Good to see you. We've both been pretty busy over the last 3 odd months, you could probably tell, but appreciate your presentation this morning. It is common sense, but we're in a very uncommon world now, and I've had a lot to do in the CBD over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's amazing how people are so anxious going back into work, getting into elevators, touch points. There's a lot of remedies out there, but you're right, we're still in a supply and demand issue. You know, sanitizer, you can get it, but there's very different grades of it. Some of it you can run a funny car down Calder Highway in the quarter mile in their funny cars. So, but there's really good stuff out there as well. So I'll catch up with you after this, Darren, because I need to have a chat to you.
Sure thing.
We do have a question that's come through on the chat. It's regarding bathrooms. So hand dryers and air blowers, should these be removed?
No. There's no evidence to saying that's going to, nothing's been said, and I've read nothing about hand dryers being a place to contaminate your hands for COVID-19. It's permanent towels, it's more things like people used to have tea towels or cloth towels in bathrooms, and they might go and wash occasionally. If that's the case, use a paper towel. Paper towel is fine because it's thrown into the waste.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
I just find the hand blowers is an issue because it sprays a lot of water onto the floor and onto the wall and makes it harder to clean, more so than anything else.
Mm. Yes. Yep. Okay, wonderful. Well, we'll finish up there if no one else has any final remarks or questions.
And feel free to give me a call afterwards if you want to have a talk privately. It's okay. I can set you straight on some questions you might have that you think of after the presentation.
That's all right. Okay, wonderful. All right, well, thank you for your time, Darren, and thank you everyone for your time for attending. So we hope to see you again at another one of our webinars soon.
Okay, bye now.
Thank you all.